Good morning or afternoon. Welcome to Mr. Reely's neighborhood. I just had lunch. Got a great lunch. Let's play a little game. What do you think I had for lunch? Just see kind of cherry tomatoes. Yeah, you are so smart. How in the world? You must be psychic. How did you know that I had cherry tomatoes for lunch? Okay, what else? Anybody else got to guess? Peas, right? I had green peas. I don't know. I don't know how you knew that. Um, Peanut butter. Yeah, peanut butter and jelly. You guys are geniuses. Yeah. What else? Anybody? Any other guesses? Yeah, barbecue sandwich. Yeah, I had barbecue sandwich. Um, you guys are really amazing. Well, anyway, I thought we'd start out with a video and watch a video today that I think's kind of cute. I don't know if you're still at the age where your parents have to fight you to get you to take a bath. Our grandkids are here now, and you would think that when we asked them to take a bath that we were asking them to jump into a pit full of snakes. 'Cause, I mean, there's all sorts of screaming and yelling and gnashing of teeth whenever we just say the word take a bath. They're like, ah, we have to force them to do that. I hope that you're not kind of at that stage where you have to do that. But I thought we'd watch this video so the next time your parents are trying to get you to take a bath, maybe if you watch this video, this will kind of put you more in the mood. This is cocoa melon. You ever heard of cocoa melon? Here you go. Let's watch this together. And maybe that'll, the next time you have to take a bath and get cleaned up for school, that you'll want to do it. Here you go. I like this. Oh, it's so cute. Just turn it louder. That looks like fun, doesn't it, boys and girls? That sounds like some song I've heard somewhere. What is that song? I can't think of what that song is. Hey, that was fun. I hope you enjoyed that. We didn't really have time to do all of that. Now, one thing that I want to let you in on, a little secret, boys and girls. I actually know that all this food is on my face. I really do not eat quite this messy. Although I got to admit, if I eat peanut butter and jelly, sometimes I get a little jelly or peanut butter on my face, but never this bad. And is that a pea right there? Yeah, boy, that was kind of gross. But I did it for a reason. Now, boys and girls, there are several things that we can learn from that video that we just watched. Can you believe that? Several things we can learn. One, you should not make a mess when you eat at the dinner table. It's very, very important that you are very, very neat. You wipe your face after every bite and be very, very polite. And just be as clean as you can and don't make a big mess. The second thing is you should always clean your face after every meal. And because you don't want to walk around with everybody able to see what you had for dinner. In fact, I'm going to tell you right now that you should for sure wash your face after every meal. If you don't, you are being a terrible person. A terrible person. And In fact, I'll go far to say that if you walk around and you have food, any food at all, left on your face at all, you are sinning. You are sinning, and God is not happy with you because you are not washing your face after every meal. So you need to do that, or you are a terrible person and you're not pleasing to your parents, to your friends, to God, to anybody. So you must always wash your face after every meal, because that's what you should do, and that's what I'm telling you you should do. Okay, now, I was just kind of putting on a little act there for you to kind of illustrate a lesson. Do you notice what was kind of wrong with what I just told you? Okay, we listened to the song, and then I started kind of telling you about how you should stay clean at meals. What did you find wrong with that? Yeah, number one, I was asking you to do something that I wasn't doing myself, right? You can see the peanut butter and jelly right there, and all over. I even got barbecue sauce on there. Okay, so that was number one. That was the wrong thing. I'm sitting there telling you to do something that I'm not even doing myself. So you're not about to listen to old barbecue face here and do anything I say because I don't even do it myself. So I'm being what's called a hypocrite, having an expectation of somebody else that I don't have for myself. And Jesus commented on this in Matthew 7. He said, make sure you get the plank out of your own eye. That's like a big board. Get a plank out of your own eye before you start trying to get the speck. You try to get that speck out of somebody else's eye. So I was wrong for not cleaning up my face and getting all clean before I try to give that advice to somebody else. Secondly, I was making a law that God did not make himself. When I said that you are sinning and God is not happy because your face is messy after a meal and you don't clean it, that you are sinning and that God is not happy with you, that was something I just made up. That's not in the Bible. And Jesus talks about that as well. And after I clean up my face, we're going to talk about that passage for a little bit and actually read a little scripture and talk more about that lesson. And the third point is maybe there are some things I might need to be a little bit more worried about in my own life than just having a clean face. Now, it's important to have a clean face and take care of your complexion and that kind of thing. But there really are more important things than that ought to be worried about. In particular, when I'm concerned with other people, I should be a lot more concerned about what's going on in the inside, in the heart of other people. And in this case, in my own heart. Because I could have the cleanest face in the world and be the neatest dresser and look great on the outside, but that doesn't do me any good if the inside, if my heart is rotten. And that's what Jesus will be talking about in a minute when we go to Scripture. And he's talking about the importance. It's not these outside things. It's the inside things. It's take care of the inside of you. In your relationship with God, that's more important than just the outside appearance. But because I know the outside appearance is somewhat important, it might be harder for you to watch much more of this video. And particularly as I get into the Bible, it's going to be hard to look at it seriously when I've got half my lunch on my face. I'm going to go clean up. Okay, I'm back. I've got my face all cleaned up there. And sorry to make you put up with that, but hey, anything to get a lesson across. If you will, turn in the Bible to the book of Leviticus. It's way back in the Old Testament. Leviticus chapter 13, verse 40. Leviticus 13, verse 40. You know, one thing that we've all had to deal with for months now is this coronavirus, COVID-19. And we've had to wear masks, we've had to social distance, we've had to do all sorts of things. Now, one thing we haven't had to do is somebody who has COVID-19, when people see them, they don't have to yell out, unclean, unclean, to keep people away from them. Instead, they quarantine and isolate themselves and stay in a house so that nobody can be near them. Well, that made me think of something in the Old Testament, in the book of Leviticus. And you see a lot of things here that talk about things that make you unclean or clean. I thought verse 40 was kind of interesting because I'm kind of at that age now. It says, a man who has lost his hair and is bald is clean. Whew. Thank goodness. Because I'm headed that way, mainly in the back there. It says, if he has lost his hair from the front of his scalp and has a bald forehead, he is clean. Okay, still doing pretty good. But if he has a reddish white sore on his head or forehead, it is a defiling disease breaking out on his head or forehead. And it goes on to say the priest is supposed to examine him and see if it's something that's contagious. And if it is, he's declared unclean. And listen, what do they have to do? And they have to do this for any number of other diseases during this time period. It says, anyone with such a defiling disease must wear torn clothes, let their hair be unkempt, cover the lower part of their face, and cry out, unclean, unclean. As long as they have the disease, they remain unclean. They must live alone. They must live outside of the camp. And back during this time, you didn't have all the marvels of modern medicine. And so the safest thing they could do at that point to keep other people from getting contaminated were for them to live outside of the camp. And if somebody came near them, they would have to say, unclean, unclean, so the person didn't get close to them and catch that particular disease. So you can see even in today's time, though, even with modern medicine, sometimes all we can do is wear masks and stay apart from one another. And you get to the New Testament, and if you will, turn to Matthew in the New Testament. Matthew chapter 15, verse 1. Matthew chapter 15, verse 1. And you'll see here that the Pharisees are really all caught up in this idea of being clean or unclean. It says, then some Pharisees and teachers of law came to Jesus from Jerusalem and asked, why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? They don't wash their hands before they eat. Then Jesus replied, and why do you break the command of God for the sake of your tradition? And he goes on and gives an example of this. But what Jesus is saying here, he's talking to them about how their tradition, that is rules of men, things that they have come up with, not necessarily bad in and of themselves, they have pushed them so hard that they've almost replaced the commands of God. Now, is it a bad idea to wash your hands before you eat? No. It's a great idea. You should always do that, whether there's a pandemic or not. You should wash your hands before you eat, because of germs and all that kind of stuff. You don't want to put germs on your food and then eat it. But Jesus isn't talking about that here. Back during this time period, the Pharisees would have what you call a ceremonial washing. And they would wash their hands. And that wasn't necessarily a bad idea to have the ceremonial washing before they eat. But that was not commanded anywhere in Scripture to do that. That was something that they came up with. That's not a bad idea. But then they started to bind it on other people and look down on other people when they didn't do it. It was their law. It wasn't God's law. So they're seeing the disciples and they're going, aha, they don't wash their hands before they eat, like it's a sin. That's a command they came up with. And they had all sorts of things like this. It wasn't just that. And so they spent so much time condemning other people for not doing things that were their laws, their commands, their tradition, not God's. And so Jesus gets on to them really. In verse 10, Jesus called the crowd to him. He says, here, come here, come here. He says, listen and understand. What goes into someone's mouth does not defile them, but what comes out of their mouth, that is what defiles them. Now, by defiles, it means make unclean. And Peter says to him later, he says, explain this parable to us. And Jesus says, don't you see that whatever enters the mouth goes into the stomach and then out of the body? But the things that come out of a person's mouth come from the heart, and these defile them. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murder, adultery, sexual immorality, theft, false testimony, slander. These are what defile a person, but eating with unwashed hands does not defile them. And so Jesus is really talking about what is really the most important thing. What's the most important thing? Is it the outside things that people see? He's saying no. He says, not washing your hand. He's talking about, in this instance, he's not saying don't wash your hand before meals. Okay, he's just making a point here, because the Pharisees had made this the whole center of what's right and wrong, this outward thing. And he says, eating with unwashed hands and eating that food and putting it inside of your body is not what makes you unclean. He says what is unclean comes from inside you and then comes out. And he makes a little list there. So how does that apply today? Let's make a simple example. How many of you guys spruce up and try to look really nice for church? Or how about at least Easter? Okay? That's a good thing. It's nice to look good at church. I don't necessarily think it's necessarily required, but it's nice. And you could come to church as the best dressed person in the whole church. But that doesn't mean anything if the inside of you, which is really the important part, is unclean or defiled. If you have evil thoughts, take 2. If you have evil thoughts, if you have unkind thoughts, if you have an unforgiving spirit and you hold grudges, if you often are dishonest, if you lie, if you're often saying bad things about other people, then it doesn't matter at all what you look like on the outside if you are defiled or unclean on the inside. What everybody else sees on the outside, that doesn't make you clean to God, because he sees what's on the inside. So what Jesus is saying here is work good on having a clean inside, a clean heart. And don't just concentrate on what everybody sees on the outside. And don't make rules and traditions and laws on other people that are really something that you've come up with yourself and not something that God commanded. Well, I hope you have a great week this week. Try not to be as sloppy an eater as Mr. Reely. It is good to clean your face, after you eat. It is good to wash your hands before you eat for hygienic reasons. But remember, despite all of this that we're trying to do and keep each other from getting the coronavirus germs, don't forget about what's going on in the inside of you and make sure that that's clean and acceptable to God. Love you. Hope to see this. And he says in verse 10, take 2. What is that? Here, come here, boy. Let's read this. What does this say?
Minto. This thing Minto.
This says, have a great day at school. Love, who's that? What's
Poppy.
that? Poppy. It says you can have a Minto when you get home from school. I guess so. Okay. I got them right here. We'll see if we can find an. We'll see if we can find an orange one.
I find orange one.
Well, there's a pink one. Then we'll get an orange one. We'll dig that. We'll dig down deeper. Let's see.
Dig down deeper.
Well, two pinks in a row. What is going on?
I wrote
There it is.
pink and orange.
That's fine. And here's an orange one.
I thought two though.
You can have two. I'll eat this one and you can have those two. Oh, good.